Greetings and salutations, friends. My name is Ariana, or Soda, or Pop, depending on your geographical location. And today, I will be talking about my experience at the 2024 Sundance Film Festival. So basically, I was there writing for 2 different magazines. I was there on assignment from Polyester Zine, and then as I was there, I was assigned 3 movies by The Wrap to write about. So very thankful to those publications, and stay tuned. I'll tell you more about where you can read my work for those publications. I also want to begin by saying that I am very grateful and very privileged that I was able to attend the festival. It is not cheap, and luckily I had the personal funds to attend, and even though I was compensated for my work by these publications, that was not enough to cover the travel and the lodging. So I'm just very grateful that I am able to say that I went and to be here talking to you guys about it today. So, day 1. My first movie of the day and of the festival was a documentary called Girl State, and I was assigned to write about it for The Wrap. Now, Girl State is a follow-up to a 2020 documentary called Boy State, and so both films follow the program where high schoolers go to a program for a week and essentially create their own democratic government. And so I knew that I wanted to do the press line for the movie that I had later that night, so I decided to do the press line for Girl State as a means of breaking the ice, getting used to it, figuring out what I was doing. I had never done a press line before, and I had no intention of doing them when I went to the festival, but my sister said that I was crazy if I didn't even try, so I did. So I showed up with my little Sony camera that I'm filming on now, and my phone with my interview questions and my notes, and I walk in and I see that they have put me on the line next to the Apple House crew. They put me in line next to the Apple House crew, and Apple is actually the distributor of the film. So it's like a 3-person team with a giant camera. The woman has a beautiful blazer on, she has a microphone, and I was put to shame. I really was. But I approached them, and I introduced myself, and I said, I don't want to be in your way, like, I'm just a little guy right next to you, like, don't mind me. And they were super, super nice, and then the press line began, and it was really, really nice. It was really exciting. I learned a lot very quickly about what to do and what not to do, and I was able to talk about that more because after the press line ended, the camera guy for the Apple House crew asked me how I was doing, which I thought was really nice. And I told him, and I was like, well, I realize I do need a tripod of some kind because I'm shooting everybody from down here because I'm 5'0" and everyone is taller than me. And he was really nice, and he asked if he could give me some advice, which was really sweet. And he just told me to bring my monopod, which I did have at the Airbnb, and I would make sure to bring it later that night, and to not let people kind of cross over the line into where I was, that I should be coming to them, not them pushing me further away. I thought that was really good advice, and so I'm really grateful to him and hope he's doing okay.
I wanted to start with, so much of both politics and documentary filmmaking is rooted in language and rhetoric.
Yeah.
So was there something that the girl said or a political figure said that you felt that stayed with you? Like the quote at the beginning of Boy State was a George Washington quote.
Well, there's one quote in the film. It's a great question, by the way. One quote that comes to mind, which is it's addressed to these young women. There's 500 young women in an auditorium, and a counselor says, "We've never had a female president. Why is that?" And I think that's a kind of central question of this project, is to ask, why don't we have more female representation in political office?
In Boy State, we didn't talk to or spend enough time with some kids who are from very, very, very tiny rural towns, even though obviously Texas has plenty of them. In that film, we didn't get to feature one of those kids, and in this film we do. We spent a lot of time trying to find somebody from a small town. So that was important.
And then it was time for my first Sundance screening. It was at the Eccles Theater, which is a very, very large theater. It's actually located in a school, and I kind of sat in the back so that I could have time to kind of dip out and go write my review afterwards, because I needed to write my review within the hour after the movie. So you can find my official review of Girl State for The Wrap in the description. I will link all of them in the description. And I thought the film was really, really interesting. I had seen Boy State literally earlier that day in preparation for the press line and just to really know what I was getting myself into. And I think what was so interesting was how the team approached the film differently than Boy State, and just had a different tone to what they wanted this film to be. They really went into Girl State wanting to make something different, wanting to make something that stood on its own. But then over the course of the filming, they realized that the Boy State program itself had a lot more opportunities and privileges that the Girl State program didn't have. So it's interesting then how the two are linked, and it was sort of a meta commentary happening on the programs but on the films themselves. The film also happened to take place during the same time as the leak of the Roe v. Wade decision, that there were rumors that they were going to be overturning Roe v. Wade. So it was really interesting to see these young girls grapple with the weight of that, the ones who were pro-choice and the ones who were pro-life. There was a wide spectrum of political beliefs in the group. And honestly, what they all agreed on was that they wished they were in the room, or at least that they were being represented in the room with these decisions being made. So I thought that was really, really powerful stuff to see these girls handle such a major decision that affects their lives, or doesn't, but affects their identity in some way. So after that, my next film was the premiere of Your Monster, which was in the Midnights category, and it was at the Egyptian Theater. And so Your Monster was directed by Caroline Lindy and was starring Melissa Barrera, Megan Fahey, and Tommy Dewey. So I was super, super excited for this one. So Your Monster is about a soft-spoken actress played by Melissa Barrera, and she is kind of reeling from a recent cancer diagnosis and surgery and treatment, and so her boyfriend breaks up with her, and she ends up going back to her childhood home and sees that her childhood monster has aged as well, and he's hanging out there, and it's a doozy, if you will. So basically, I think one of the biggest issues with Sundance that people have with Sundance and attending the festival is the accessibility of tickets. It's really, really complicated how it works. Basically, there are specific press screenings at the Holiday Village Inns that are meant for press, and you can just get in there, wait in line, and hope you get in. But obviously, a lot of people are trying to go to the premieres, and they want to see the cast, the crew, do the press lines. And so your options there are, one, Sundance did send out about a week or two before the festival a form that you could request a ticket. You can request up to one ticket per day, and you give like your 5 options, and they try to give you one. Or what I was able to do for the ones that I wrote about was, luckily the publicists were able to get me a ticket to those premieres. So it's not the most accessible, and it honestly was cause of great stress. So I showed up to the press line, and this is honestly where I began to realize that a really good benefit of doing the press lines, besides getting to talk to the talent and the crew, is to network and to meet other writers, to meet other creators, and foster connections, and also just talk about their experience at the festival before. Since I was a newbie, hearing people who had been going for several years, it was crazy, and it was just so fun, and I really enjoyed going to the press lines. At that point, I knew that I wanted to go just to meet other writers, even if I didn't get like the footage that I wanted or the interviews that I wanted. And then when we got there, I learned that Megan Fahey, which you might know best from White Lotus, she was not going to be doing personal interviews. And so I was very sad about that, because I really wanted to talk to her about her singing voice, to see if she would be singing in the movie. Then I got to speak to other people in the crew. I spoke to the composer, and I spoke to the cinematographer, which was really, really cool. And then Melissa came out, and we didn't have a lot of time with her because, again, like, it had started late, so it was a kind of a fast-paced kind of question-answer type of thing. The question I wanted to ask her was how playing a soft-spoken actress, finding her voice, resonated with her now as an actress who is being called out and punished for being pro-Palestine. And I did ask her that question, but unfortunately, even though she began to answer, her publicist was like, she can't really answer that. And I was like, that is so valid, very true. And so then I asked her what her favorite childhood monster was.
Now I call them monsters, but I used to call them vampires because of this musical called Title of Show. That's about like the vampires in your head that are your insecurities. So it's the fear of like never being able to achieve your dreams, or not being good enough to do the kinds of things that you set out to do, or letting your parents down after all the sacrifices that they make for you. Like those kinds of things are things that I think you work on, but you never fully conquer. So it's a work in progress,
And then after that, I said, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to offend. I really admire, like, what you're saying right now and how you're using your platform, and I'm sorry this is all happening to you. And she was so nice. Even the publicists, they were like, no, you did not offend, you're doing okay. And then I got to speak to Tommy Dewey, who plays Monster, and I asked him, if the monster had a name, what would it be?
Oh, that is a great question. We just called him Monster throughout. And in fact, I think naming him might take me in the wrong direction. I think Monster with a capital N, like my name is Tommy, he's Monster Dewey.
So then, as we were leaving, we were going down the staircase of the Egyptian, and it was kind of tight. There was some traffic, so we had to stop a couple times. And as I'm stopped, I see directly to my right is Megan Fahey. And I couldn't believe it. And we made eye contact, and I said, hi. And she goes, hi. And I was like, how are you? And she goes, I'm good, how are you? And I'm like, great. And so then the person impressed behind me is like, I loved you in White Lotus, by the way. And she said, thank you. And then I was like, but really, let's talk about how you were so good as Sutton in The Bold Type. And she lit up and she was like, thank you so much, you made my day. And I was like, girl, you made mine. If you watch The Bold Type, it's not perfect, but she's really good in it. And then it was time for the movie. And at this point, I was exhausted. It was such a long day. The movie wasn't starting until like 10 o'clock at night. But the movie just jolted energy back into my body. It was so much fun. It was so cool. I haven't written about the film officially yet. I have a couple pitches in the work right now, and I'm waiting to hear back from some publications. But I really hope that this comes out soon, because right now we're seeing sort of like a rom-com resurgence. It's slow and up and coming, but people are dying for more romantic comedies, and I think that this is like exactly what needs to come out to really skyrocket that resurgence. I personally love when romances blend sci-fi or fantasy. Like, those are my two favorite genres just coming together, and this was such a good example of that. Melissa and Tommy have amazing chemistry, and Melissa is just so great in this. Obviously she's good in everything, but I feel like we get to see her do some new stuff in here, see her do comedy, which we haven't really seen her do before. And of course there's some horror elements, so she does get to, hone those skills from the Scream franchise, whatever. At one point in the film, Tommy Dewey does this really cute thing with his hands, and it's not really the center of the scene. So then later when I saw him after the movie, I caught his attention and I was like, you know what, you're right. I think Monster is just good as Monster. And then I complimented him on that thing that he did with his hands in the movie. And he was so kind. He said that I have a keen eye and that it was a really nice compliment to give him. And that really made my day. And then my mom insisted on taking a picture of the two of us together. And he was just so lovely. And like that was so special to me. And that was my first day at Sundance. Day 2. Originally, I had a 9 a.m. screening set for that day. That was not going to happen. I didn't go to bed until 2 o'clock in the morning. I was so sore from having carried all my stuff that whole day, so that was just not in the cards for me. I'm so sorry. So then my next screening was at 2:30, and it was for the premiere of Between the Temples, starring Jason Schwartzman and the Carol Kane. This one was another assignment for the rap, so I was really excited to write about that. Fairly nervous. Basically, like, I had never written with such frenzy before of like watching a movie and then immediately going home and figuring out what I thought and like putting that to words. So that was a really, really cool challenge that I'm really proud that I was able to do. If you like chaotic family dramedies, this is right up your alley, specifically one Shabbat scene where all hell breaks loose and it's like the worst 10 minutes of your life. It's terrible. It's so good. It is about a cantor named Ben, played by Jason Schwartzman, who has lost his voice following the loss of his wife. And so he also prepares children for their bat mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs. So one day his old teacher, Carol Kane, comes and she's like, actually, I never had a bar mitzvah, and I would like to have one, please. In my review for the wrap, I talk about how one of my favorite elements of the film is actually something that's not really at the forefront of the film, and it is the connection it has to motherhood and the relationships that we have with our mothers. At the Q&A at the end of the film, that was sort of touched upon some more, and that was my favorite element of the movie. So I really liked that one, and my review will also be linked below. Finally, my last movie of that day was the premiere of Presence, directed by none other than the Steven Soderbergh. I was very excited for this one, but it didn't come without its baggage. I also really wanted to see I Saw the TV Glow. As a queer person and a genderqueer person specifically, I really wanted to see that film, and Sundance did give me a ticket for it, which was awesome, and then they took it away, which really sucked. There was some sort of glitch, I'm not sure, so that ticket was gone. And they ended up giving me my second ticket, which was for Presence. So I was really excited to see Presence, but very sad that I wasn't able to see I Saw the TV Glow. But a major reason that Presence was my next was not only Steven Soderbergh, but Lucy Liu. Lucy Liu was in the film, and I love that woman so much. So Presence is a thriller/horror film about a family moving into a new home as their high school daughter is grieving the loss of her friend who died because of a fentanyl overdose. Her brother is about the same age as her, but has majorly different priorities and cares more about his ego, and honestly the two of them don't really get along. And basically throughout the entire film, the whole family is in a rocky place. They're all pretty estranged and having their own inner problems. And so this film has gotten some mixed reviews, and I can understand why. It does make some stylistic choices that may not be for everybody. I personally really, really liked the movie. I really resonated with how it explored family dynamics, especially the dynamics between two siblings. And the story that it wound up telling was so viscerally disturbing, and it just wounded me in such a good way. I think I had sort of a pre-existing sensitivity to the narrative beats that it ended up having, and I just found it very moving and very effective. I feel like if you liked Haunting of Hill House and what it has to say about ghosts and time, I think that you would like Presence. This is another one that I'm hoping to write about, and that pitch is still in the works, but if that does not happen, you guys will get a more thorough review on the channel. Okay, so day 3 is now my last full day at Sundance. And so I was trying to squeeze 3 movies in, but alas, it was just 2 still, so I never got to 3 movies a day. But to those of you, to that woman I heard in line that was doing 4 movies a day and wasn't eating, I applaud you, but I hope you're okay. So on this day, I did my first Holiday Village Inn press screening, and I was a little nervous for how that would work out, but it worked out just fine. I got there with some time and waited in line, and it was for the film It's What's Inside. You may have heard about it because Netflix recently purchased the movie for $17 million, which is like one of the bigger Sundance deals. And yeah, there have been some not controversial, but there has been some mixed feelings about that, because I personally, even though I didn't love the movie, sorry, I'll get to that, I did like seeing it with an audience, and it is a bummer that it's going to streaming, because I think it's so similar to Bodies, Bodies, Bodies that, like, you think that they would want to have that, well, no, money's money, I guess. It's What's Inside is a thriller and comedy, and it's made in the vein of Bodies, 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 but millennials. Basically, it's about a group of old friends who reunite because one of the guys in the group is getting married. Our main characters are this couple played by James Morosini, who you might know from The Sex Lives of College Girls, and his girlfriend is Brittany O'Grady from White Lotus Season 1. And so at this reunion, old dynamics emerge and cause problems. Things get a little more sci-fi when David W. Thompson, who you might know from Fear Street 1994 as the Skull Mask Killer Ryan Torres, he shows up, and he is a game designer, and this game he's created allows everyone to switch bodies. So your mind will go into the body of the person that you may hate, that you may love, that you may want to fuck. Mess ensues. Millennial mess ensues. My friend and editor, Kayla, who I've talked about with a lot here, says that millennials aren't funny. There are only very few exceptions. I thought it was okay. I thought the editing and the style of the film was the coolest part. It uses photographs, still images, to navigate the idea of memories and how we can remember or misremember things, and then as we learn more, things will populate the image and that memory will shift. So that was super interesting. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a fun time, but there were some narrative beats that just didn't sit with me, and I thought that the actors were almost better at playing the other bodies they inhabited. They were all better at acting as other people than they were as their own characters. And there was just like a sort of awkwardness. But fun time, and if you're going to watch it on Netflix, watch it with a bunch of friends that you want to start some mess with. Finally, my last film of that day was the premiere of My Old Ass, starring Aubrey Plaza. This was also my last press line of the trip, and I was very excited because when I got there, I saw that they had put me next to Nylon, Nylon magazine, and I was like, oh my god, like, that's cool. And then in walks a writer for Nylon that I follow and like love her work, so that was really cool because I got to talk to her and get to know her and tell her how much I like her work, and that was just such a fun press line. I talked to some writers from Screen Rant as well, so I just thought that was a very fun and a very cool last press line. So the cast includes Maisie Stella, who you might know from the show Nashville, Carice Brooks, Maddie Ziegler, and Percy Hines White, who you might know from Wednesday, the Netflix TV show. So this was my last assignment for the wrap, and I was very excited for this one because this is a movie that I had wanted to see and make sure I caught before I was even assigned to it by the wrap.
Yeah. What do you guys hope to see in your future when you're the age that adult Elliot is?
Woo! Money.
Facts.
Really solid answer.
I would say, honestly, I hope that I love myself.
God, shit.
Yeah.
And I also hope to see like more peace in the world,
Yes.
more acceptance, more tolerance, I guess.
I feel like that's such a bland answer, but yeah, I think just being content and happy and
Yeah.
hopefully creating still. I hope that I'm still in the same world of what I'm doing with, hopefully my family, my sister, we're all still kicking it together and
We're all healthy.
we're all healthy and good and happy and yeah.
What draws you to stories about youth, and how do you feel like you approach this one differently than Fallout?
I think I was an actor at that age, and I was working sometimes on things. I was like, I wish this felt more authentic to what I'm actually going through. And so I kind of feel like part of me is trying to redo that in a sense. And I don't know if I'm probably not always going to write movies in this space specifically towards YA, but these were just two stories that I really wanted to tell, and they happened to sort of be that coming of age story. And so yeah, I mean, and approaching both of these films, they were so different. And they came from such a different place, and so they were easy and challenging in different ways.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Crazy right now.
Yeah,
my
go
question for you is, was playing Elliot more about like tapping into new arenas as an actor, or were you maturing on some energies you've already engaged in?
I mean, I think new. I've never I've never played like a figment of someone's imagination, or like I've never played. It was a really interesting thing to do where there kind of aren't any rules, because it's this kind of like existential situation. So that part was really new for me, but I think every part I do, I'm always kind of tapping into something that's personal and something that speaks to me about the character and about the story, or else I can't like access it. So I'm always kind of drawing on like my own stuff, I think.
It's about this girl, played by Maisie Stella, who is celebrating her 18th birthday by taking shrooms, and then while she is tripping, her 38-year-old self, played by Aubrey Plaza, walks in. And after the trip is over, they realize that they can actually keep talking over the phone because older Elliot put her phone number in younger Elliot's phone. I liked the film. I did cry at the end a little bit. I think that the director, Meghan Park, did a really good job at capturing Gen Z in an authentic way. Oh my god. Especially with the dialogue, I think that it all felt very relevant and very real, and the actors played it really well. And that's even at the risk of being outdated. I feel like people are scared when movies are so referential of the time they're living in, especially with Gen Z, because with the internet, like, trends just are gone in minutes, and references can make your story feel outdated and out of touch. But I feel like with a story about time and about capturing this specific era of your life as it's fleeting, it just felt very relevant, and I think it works with the movie. I touch upon this in my review for the wrap, but the film is about queerness in a way that I didn't expect, and in a way that honestly may not be for everybody. Basically, the point of the film, a lot of the film is about how older Elliot is saying, beware of this guy named Chad, don't get involved with him. And so the movie establishes that Elliot likes women, but then about halfway through the movie, Elliot reveals to her friend that she thought she was a lesbian, and that's the reason behind her present hesitation with dating Chad. And so that's an interesting decision. I think it's the most unexpected thing that the movie does, which is daring and bold. And as someone who is bisexual, it was cool to see a character talk about bisexuality. But I do think it's an interesting choice that on paper sounds a bit odd. The idea of liking women but then meeting a guy and that changes. But I also feel like that's real life. I don't know. I think that the scene where they talk about it is well-intentioned and honestly very beautiful, the way the conversation evolves, and it talks about labels, and she is 18 years old, like, I don't think it's a negative story or a negative realization, but I do think you could argue that it's maybe not the most necessary narrative decision. I don't really think it adds a whole lot necessarily, and yeah, I'd like to know what other people think, because I think, it does seem well-intentioned. There are people in the audience who are very moved by it, but I think it can sound a bit odd on paper. But Maisie Stella is unbelievable. She is so freaking funny in this movie, and I just thought it was a really, really good time. And you can find my review at the link in the description. I forgot to mention that on day 3, when I was waiting for the lift on Main Street to go to see It's What's Inside, I was standing behind a pizza restaurant, and out comes Lucy Liu and Julia Fox, because Julia Fox is also in Presence. And I was so starstruck, and they walked past me, and I didn't know what to say, and finally I said, Presence was so good last night, because I figured that would be better than saying, I am so in love with you, Lucy. Julia, you're cool too. And Lucy Liu touched my arm, and she said, thank you so much for seeing it, and it was the best moment of my life. I cried on the sidewalk. Thanks, Lucy. And then it was day 4, and it was my last day, and I made it so that I could watch one more movie that day because I had a late enough flight, and that movie needed to be Love Lies Bleeding. They were doing the press screening at the Holiday Village, and I showed up an hour and a half early just to make sure I had a seat. You probably already know what it's about, as the trailers are already out, but basically it's about a character named Jackie, played by Katie O'Brien, who was a bodybuilder in town for a short period of time so she can train and save up some money to go to Vegas for a bodybuilding competition. In town, she meets Lou, played by Kristen Stewart, and the two form a sexy, violent romance. Other people in the cast include Beth, played by Jenna Malone, who is Lou's sister, Beth's husband, played by Dave Franco, named JJ, and Lou and Beth's dad, played by Ed Harris, also named Lou. And what did I think of the movie? Well, I'm gay, so I liked it. I have a formal essay coming out for Polyester very soon. I'm not sure if it'll be out by the time this video is up. If it's not, you can follow me on Instagram or follow my website, and you can get the update when it's out there. But it also might be in the description if I come back to it. But basically, yeah, it was so freaking good. Like, I feel like everybody knows it's going to be good. Women's stories matter. They just matter. I love body horror, especially when it's done in different ways, and that's what I like about director Rose Glass, who also made Saint Maud. She does body horror in a way that isn't sort of so cut and dry, genre scary way, and just likes to experiment and sprinkle it into stories about other things. And I just thought it was so good. It was so much funnier than I thought it was going to be, and I loved the chemistry. I loved the absurdist humor of it. Like, it was just awesome, and I left that theater on such a high, like, just remembering how much not that I'd forgotten, but just, like, sitting with how much I love movies and how much I love talking about movies. And there were these two really pretty girls that I saw in line on the way in, I saw them on the way out, and we were all just like, how fucking cool was that? Like, it was just electrifying, and the energy leaving the theater was so good, and I'm just so grateful that was the last movie I saw, and that's what I left the festival with. So that was it for my in-person Sundance experience. I did watch some films online, so I'm going to talk about those now. But overall, my look back on Sundance was, you know what, it's not perfect. You know, a lot of people have come out and raised some very real criticisms against the festival, against its issues this year in person, whether that be with the Press Initiative, Sundance's like for a long time silence on Utah's anti-trans bills, and then when they did say something, it was barely anything. I'm going to link a really good article I found that raised some really good criticisms against the festival. And, you know, every institution needs to be checked and cannot go without its own criticisms. But as someone who had never been before, and I had an internship with them last summer, it was a really big deal for me to attend, to start off my year after graduating university, which I just did, to start my postgraduate life with something as big as this, and hone these skills that mean so much to me. So it was really a good experience, and my mom came with me, and that was really, really cool. And it was beautiful. Park City is so beautiful. The snow is so beautiful. This Floridian bitch really was in love. I loved it. So now I'm going to be talking about my online screenings that I saw. So the first film that I saw online was called Layla, and it is about an Arab drag queen who is sort of struggling to make ends meet, but finding their way. The movie begins with Muna playing, so obviously it was perfect, and it was just so gay, and I love that. What I really liked about Layla is that it talks about self-sabotage and the internal issues that come with being queer. You know, Layla does have a community, does have a very supportive community around them, but still manages to isolate themselves because of their own personal baggage. And I thought that was a really cool and original way to explore queerness, because so often you see that it's like external issues, and that's not what's happening here necessarily. And I think several shots in the film in general just capture like the rawness and authenticity of being queer, and it just really came off as a love letter to the queer community, and it was just so much fun, and it was so light while still dealing with some very real issues of being queer and the way that we interact with other queer people and how different and how much of a spectrum that really is. The next film I saw online that I really wanted to catch in person but alas could not was Ponyboi. This was probably my, also up there with Love Lies Bleeding in terms of how much I loved it and also how much it deserves attention. It is about an intersex sex worker and drug dealer who runs into some problems, if you will. The main character is named Ponyboi and is played by River Gallo, who wrote the script and has been working on the script for a very long time, and you can just tell that there's so much blood, sweat, and tears that went into this script and this story. The film also stars Dylan O'Brien and Victoria Pedretti, and they are phenomenal. It's so cool to see Dylan O'Brien not playing this, goofy good guy, but having some grit to him, and Victoria Pedretti is plays to perfection in here. She balances campiness and tenderness so well. Specifically, the laugh that she chooses for her character, just little things like that, so good. It also features Murray Bartlett, who is the hotel manager in White Lotus Season 1, and in Ponyboi he plays a gay cowboy, and it's the most perfect casting decision of all time. New Oscar category, best casting, I don't even know if that's what they mean, but awards. I'm also planning to write about Ponyboi, pitching it to other places, but if not for here, because what it does with the Latino cowboy motif and how that has to do with masculinity and machismo and specifically fatherhood is just so beautiful and so poetic and something that really resonated with me. And honestly, it's the movie that has stayed in my brain the most since leaving Sundance because of that. And yeah, it's very special, and I hope that it picks up distribution soon and that people see it. I think people really should see it. The next film I saw was a documentary. It was the only documentary I got a chance to see at Sundance, and that was called Sugarcane. It is about the Indian reservation schools in Canada and the decades of abuse that happened in those schools that led to unwanted pregnancies and deaths and runaways and just, generational problems, really. And that's studied very well because the director, Julian Brave Noisecat, has a personal connection in that his father was born at the school and was found there as a newborn, that his mother had, left him there not knowing what to do. And so it talks about the tumultuous relationship that Julian has with his own father and that his father has with his own mother because of all that abuse and the baggage and the shame that comes with that history. It was, of course, very difficult to watch, but it's just truly a testament to how easy it is for history to go unknown. I had never heard about any of this stuff, and it's just unbelievable to see how much history can escape us and how much that knowledge and that the atrocities of the past can escape us if things like this aren't made that bring attention to them. The next film I watched was Reinas, and it was the only foreign language film that I got to see, a part of the World Cinema category at Sundance. The film is in Spanish as it takes place in Peru, and it's about this an absent father who is trying to make up for lost time and bond with his two daughters as they are about to move with their mother, his ex-wife, to the United States. My favorite aspect about Reinas was the scenes with the adults and how it shows them drinking and dancing and talking late at night. I think their relationships are not at the forefront, but they're so familiar and they're studied so well, and I really liked them. And it also has a phenomenal soundtrack. Gonzalo Molina, who plays the father Carlos, is so good in this. He just has a brilliant understanding of the complexity of his character and the complexity of the feelings that he has, and how we as the audience maybe don't like him because of the mistakes that he's made, but understand the journey that he's going on. And it was just a really nice film. I really liked it. And finally, the last film that I watched was Desire Lines, which was a quasi-documentary that blended in some narrative storylines in there, in which a trans man begins working at an archive and studies the queer past, specifically things like bathhouses. In my Letterboxd review, I put this quote that the director says in the Q&A following the film, because I just thought it was such a great encapsulation of what this film is doing. The quote is, "Archives and bathhouses are not that different. They're both spaces where you're cruising, one for sex and another for knowledge, and maybe those things aren't that different." So that was Jules Roscom, who is the director of Desire Lines. If you saw my last video, you know that I lost someone to AIDS, and So stories about that part of queer history are, you know, very touching for me, and there's just always so much more to learn. There's always another person that you never heard about who lost that battle and still did so much with their lives before they lost it. And so I thought it was a really good portrait of that era, and in a way that was very creative, in a way that I hadn't seen done before. And as someone who was interested in working in archives and preservation, that really resonated with me, and I was really moved by that part of the story. And that is everything that I saw at the Sundance 2024 Film Festival. I hope that this incentivizes you guys to check those movies out or check out other movies in the program. You know, there are so many other things that I didn't get a chance to see, and there are so many other good stuff there worth checking out. Check my description if you're interested in reading my reviews for these films and any other places that I may be putting content. I just started a Substack this year, so that will be a newsletter. I'm trying to do once a month right now, but then we'll pick it up. So I'm kind of shifting to that a little bit more if you want to get more content, probably more frequently than this. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching.